Greetings, my girlfriend goes up to this podcast. My name is Craig, transmitting from beautiful swampy mangroves of South Florida. And today's date, Thursday, September 21st, 2017. Ooh, yeah, it is cloudy, rainy now and then in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Chilling downtown, and a little bit echoing here, so sorry about that. Just had a little wing it ordeal, but yeah, it's got just been informed that Puerto Rico may not get any power for at least 6 months, but that could change any time. And Maria has weakened to a category is still strong 3 at 150 miles an hour, maybe a little bit further the last time I checked. So it's got to keep our eyes on her regardless. The other storms are being developed along the way in the Atlantic Ocean. And we're still doing some rescue missions in Mexico City with the earthquakes and also plus they even felt the effects in Acapulco. That's how powerful this quake was. That happened down there a couple of days ago. Plus, there was other earthquakes along the Ring of Fire as well in Indonesia too. So, Mother Nature at its finest. I was watching this video from Activist Post talk about Kim Jong-un's Freemason. It made us see like a lot of show and tell on what's going on with the so-called conflict in North Korea. It could be a total distraction. However, you should always just pay attention. Don't let this manifestation go after you, on you, because that's why these dumbed down mainstream news want you to look at that and not the rest of the stuff that's occurring around the world. Yeah, and I just watched this other video too from RT with the protests of Iran on human rights and so forth. And it's really cute. You see the Iranian flag in the background where they spoke outside of the UN Plaza. They have the golden bridges around it, and it always say this: "Can we save maritime? My oh my oh my! When will the people learn about these interesting symbols that we have all around us?" Yep, and it's just another day in the empire and for the one world order. So they're doing the propaganda machine at the General Assembly, to the Second General Assembly. I haven't heard the other folks talk. Just same old song and dance, I would say. Just to make us have us rely on them to live. And I say the hell with them. Vultures in that particular ability. So yeah, mainly I'm gonna be focusing on political stuff, political corruption, a few articles, and it gets something to really look at. And let us begin. I'm a little bit mellowed out, so okay, this is a game from the FloridaBulldog.com. And it came out today around 6 a.m. And it says here, in Hialeah, money meant to feed poor kids pays for Las Vegas trip for city officials. Let us begin, shall we? By Francisco Alvarado from FloridaBulldog.org. 2 years ago, Hialeah Mayor Carlos Hernandez signed off on spending $7,621 from a $10,000 corporate grant for feeding poor children. Instead, money went to pay for airline tickets and posh hotel accommodations for himself, his chief of staff, a police detective, and 4 other city employees to attend a Parks and Recreations conference in Las Vegas. Hialeah, diarrhea. Don't get me wrong, there's some great folks in that city, man. Well, I just gotta chuckle because Hialeah is like a pretty bad they have a pretty bad epidemic there itself. And I remember people trying to get some information. They had to call the police on them. They, oh, you can't be videotaping here. It's like, yes, you can, but you are public servants. And I'm gonna see what this knucklehead has done according to this article. News of Mayor's Hernandez Curious City spending surfaced in documents filed in a recently closed joint public corruption investigation by Miami-Dade State Attorney's Office and Commission of Ethics and Public Trust. Another strange finding: Hernandez never traveled to Las Vegas to attend the annual conference of the National Recreation and Parks Association from September 13th to 17th, 2015, and where his whereabouts for 7 days remain a mystery. Hernandez was the investigation focused, but he won't face criminal charges. A closed-out memo written by Assistant State Attorney Trent Reichling and obtained by Florida Bulldog concluded that the September 13th or 19th trip, ending 2 days after the conference closed, was official city business authorized by a trio of high-ranking Hialeah bureaucrats. Further, authorities found no documentation that the grant provider, the National Recreation and Park Association, had prohibited the use of corporate grants and travel expenses. The evidence contradicts the allegation that Mayor Hernandez intended to misappropriate NRPA funds for his personal benefit, Reichling wrote. Therefore, there was no evidence of criminal conduct that would substantiate the filing of charges. The June 26 closed-out memo wasn't made public until August 31st, along with the investigative report by the Miami-Dade Ethics Commission, which worked in conjunction with the state attorney's public corruption task force. Allies rewarded. For Hernandez's critics, like the former Hialeah Mayor Raul Martinez, the report and the memo indicated Hernandez rewarded two of his closest allies, Chief of Staff Arnaldo Alonso and Detective Felix Delgado, with an all-expense paid vacation while he disappeared from his official duties for 7 days. In the 24 years I ran the city, if I would just manage doing something like this, I would have been indicted, said Martinez. Now you can get away with anything. Martinez was convicted thirdly in 1991 for extortion and racketeering, but after a new trial in 1996 was acquitted of extortion. The jury deadlocked on other 5 other counts, and the prosecutor subsequently dropped the case. Martinez lambasted the Ethics Commission and the State Attorney's Office for conducting what he said was a poor investigation. The State Attorney and local investigative agencies have decided that Hialeah is like Chinatown, Martinez said, referencing the 1974 film about a corrupt scheme involving the Los Angeles Department of Water and Power. They go in, but they don't really investigate anything. Specifically, Martinez pointed out to witness statements, including testimony by Alonso and Delgado, that he contends shows they were less than forthcoming about where the mayor was during the week of the Las Vegas conference. It is shameful of the Ethics Commission and the state attorney for allowing people to lie and doing nothing. Martinez said also nothing that investigators apparently made no attempt to interview Mayor Hernandez. Alonso did not respond to 3 phone messages requesting an interview. Messages left for Hernandez and Delgado, who works as a liaison between the mayor's office and the police department, were not returned. Ed Griffith, spokesman for the Miami-Dade state attorney, Catherine Hernandez-Rondo, declined to specifically address Martinez's criticism, but know that a prosecutor cannot ethically file criminal charges unless there is sufficient evidence to prove guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. This matter was reviewed in great detail, Griffith said. The conclusion of our closeout memo best indicates the reasoning involved in determining that a criminal charge could not be filed. Perjury prosecution very rare. Miami-Dade Ethics Commission Executive Director Joe Santorino, former chief of the state attorney's public corruption unit, defended his agency's work. I think the inconsistent statements by the chief of staff are pretty well laid out in our report. Santorino said, yet prosecutions of perjury are very rare because it's difficult to prove. Of course, the decision to pursue it as a criminal matter made by the state attorney. The inquiry into Las Vegas trip began March 1st, 2016, when NRPA Chief Financial Officer Anna Amseli told an ethics investigator that the conference concluded on Thursday, September 17, 2015, and could not account for why the Hialeah delegation stayed at MX for 2 days. She also said nobody on the internal staff actually saw the mayor and the city's NRPA grants, which are funded by corporate sponsors like Walmart, were intended solely for feeding children at Hialeah parks. Moreover, Amseli said travel expenses to the annual conference would be an inconsistent use of grant funds. The investigative report states, "We would have never agreed that this is an allowable use of these funds," she added. The Hialeah contingent stayed at the MGM Grand in Las Vegas, where the room's rate was $219.52 per night. On May 11, 2016, Hialeah Parks and Recreation Director Joseph Dzizik, one of the 4 other employees who went to Los Angeles, told investigators that Hernandez was expected to attend the NRPA conference because his apartment was up for a big reward, but the mayor canceled the participation in the trip prior to leaving. Dzizik did not know why that he was also unaware of any prohibition against using NRPA funds for travel expenses to the annual conference, according to the investigative report. Misspent money. Indeed, investigators discovered the city had misspent money and spent an additional $11,114 in NRP funds to cover employees' travel expenses for the organization's conference in 2012, 2013, and 2014. Another $3,541 in grant money for hungry kids was spent on 2 desktop scanners, an L-shaped workstation, 3 desks, and six folding carts, and a healthy eating presentation at Malander Park. After a month of dedicated investigators questioned Glenn Rice, an ex-Hialeah cop who was one of Hernandez's most trusted political operatives, until they had falling out short after the Las Vegas trip. Rice said she drove Alonso to Fort Lauderdale International Airport on September 13, 2015, according to the investigative report. He said Alonso told him the mayor was going, but was vague as to any particulars of the trip, the report states. According to an October 25, 2016 sworn statement, Delgado, whom Dzizik described as the mayor's bodyguard, he said he had only found out Hernandez was staying behind when he boarded the JetBlue flight. He said Alonso told him that the mayor would not be going to Las Vegas, but did not say why, the report states. Delgado said he normally speaks to the mayor on a daily basis at work. Delgado said the mayor did not call him during the week he was in Las Vegas, and that he did not call the mayor. Interesting, right? Delgado also explained that Hernandez had requested that he go to Las Vegas in order to keep everybody out of trouble. The mayor was particularly concerned that Alonso might have too much to drink and do something to embarrass the city. Sounds like the first time, never really happened. You know that the chief of staff did have a couple of drinks, vodka, the report states. Leslie Franco, Hernandez's administrative assistant at the time of Las Vegas trip, told investigators on March 3rd that Alonso and the mayor are extremely close, and that he would be privy to the Hernandez whereabouts when he was scheduled to be at the 2015 NRPA conference. I like to party. On June 12th, after being subpoenaed by the state's attorney's office with his lawyer present for a sworn statement, Alonso said he had no direct knowledge of Hernandez's whereabouts after the mayor decided not to go to Las Vegas. The chief of staff also said he could not recall any communication with Hernandez during those 7 days. As far as Delgado's claim about Hernandez's concern that Alonso had a drinking problem, the chief of staff said, "Listen, I like to party. I'm 38 and single." The public can't even do his damn job right with all that intoxication. Investigators subsequently obtained text messages from Alonso city-issued phone, which appeared to show him covering for Hernandez when city attorney Lorena Bravo asked to have the mayor call her. "Okay, I will let him know." Alonso wrote back, "Remember, we are both out of town." In August 22nd, email to Reichling, Ethics Commission investigator Carl Ross broaches the possibility of subpoenaing cell tower data for the mayor's phone during the week he's supposed to be in Vegas based on Alonso's text message. "I don't know whether this rises to the level of possible perjury," Ross wrote, "but it seems to suggest Alonso was not being truthful or forthcoming or whatever you want to call it while he was under oath." In response to Ross, Reichling didn't think there was didn't think there was enough to proceed with a perjury investigation against Alonso. He certainly was not specific or forthcoming with his responses, but that is not a crime that I'm aware of. Reichling wrote, adding that the mayor's phone location data would also not help proving a crime had been committed. With regards to an order of historic cell site data, our office's policy is that there would be probable cause to believe the cell site data would lead to evidence of a crime, Reichling wrote. "Unless I am missing something, I do not believe I could proceed with charging Alonso with a crime applying for a cellular site on the mayor's phone." Well, interesting. A lot of stuff, a lot of crap is happening, I believe. I just get a big kick out of this. The city knows best. So you can't say they can't really prosecute, but if you and I do it, go throw the book at that SP. Remember, city government are not that pristine. But the whole thing is this, my friends. These people gotta be helped. I'm not crazy about these grants. I'm not too keen about these big building contractors trying to build stuff all over, altering the land we live on. That's another example how corruption can get away with it. But if you and I, they will toss us in like a wounded dog into a cage like the inhumane society. But sometimes these individuals are great at stepping on their own bear traps. I guarantee you that. So you gotta keep an eye on them. And then, in addition, public information. Sunshine Law, Article 24, Article 1, Section 24 of the Florida Constitution. Look it up. Don't be shy. Oh, yes. So, we're going to hit another one here about Ref Rodriguez. Came in a couple of days ago from the Los Angeles Times. Ref Rodriguez, facing criminal charges, resigns as LA School Board President. So, yep, you got people singing on their phones. Yes, I'm going to do his thing. Yep. Less than 3 months in his role as president of Los Angeles Board. That is by, Howard Bloom, Sonali Carley, and Joy Risemers, the contact reporters. Less than 3 months into his role as president of the Los Angeles Board of Education, Ref Rodriguez announced Tuesday that he would step down from the post to spare the school district the distraction of a criminal case filed against him. The decision marks a stunning turnaround for Rodriguez and supporters of charter schools, who spent record sums in campaigns this year to elect a broad majority that is widely viewed as pro-charter. The new majority chose Rodriguez as president in July, Rodriguez, 46, who faces 3 felony charges on allegations of campaign money laundering, said he would retain his seat on the board. That will leave the charter friendly majority intact, though his legal problems could detract from what the majority has described as the kids' first agenda. When he was elected in 2015, Rodriguez, the co-founder of the charter organization, was the first member of the board to have a deep personal ties to the charter school community. The charges stem from the 2015 campaign, although investigators began looking into Rodriguez's actions regarding campaign contributions. At least 2 years ago, the case became public only when the charges were announced last week. The district attorney's office charged Rodriguez with perjury and other felonies. Allegedly, he funneled more than $24,000 of his own money into his campaign and hid the true source of the donations by reimbursing the family members, friends, and charter school employees who had served as his straw donors. Rodriguez has not publicly whether the allegations are true or not, but his attorney, Daniel Nixon, said he has cooperated fully with the investigation. Nixon initially said Rodriguez will continue his work on the board as before, but his ability to function as president was immediately called into question, including by his board colleagues, although they declined to say so publicly. The board president presides over meetings, manages the meeting schedule, and control the committee assignments of other board members. The president also frequently serves as the public face of the nation's second largest school system, appearing at events and fielding questions from reporters. Rodriguez has declined to talk to reporters since being charged, including Tuesday, when he arrived after the start of board meeting and left immediately as it closed. Although his announcement came as board members were meeting, he made it on a social media, not in person. In order to allow the board to remain focused on the hard work ahead of us, I have decided to step aside as board president, Rodriguez said in a statement that was posted on Facebook and Twitter. I don't want to serve as a distraction to my colleagues or to any other dedicated teachers, principals, and employees who do the hard work of educating students every day. And you can see this for yourself. It is in there with the letter itself, which is on his Twitter account. So you actually can look that up yourselves. And that's what he says on there. So that's okay. He has how many followers this guy has? Interesting. Well, I'm not going to be worried about that. He had not stepped down voluntarily. Other board members could have chosen to replace him before his one-year term expired. For the moment, the task of chairing meetings will fall to Board Vice President Monica Garcia, whom Rodriguez appointed to the position in July. The longest-serving board member, Garcia, has been president in the past. She's an ally of Rodriguez and would be an obvious choice to replace him. Board member Nick Malavoyan said in a text that he expected the board to call a special meeting to select a new president very soon. LA School Superintendent Michelle King said she respected Rodriguez's decision to step aside as board president. Reaction from Rodriguez supporters were muted, but generally supportive of both him and his decision. We believe Ref. Rodriguez made the right choice today to step down as president of the Los Angeles Unified School District Board. The California Charter Schools Association said in a statement, this decision allows the board to stay focused on the needs of the students while also providing board members Rodriguez the time he needs to address the charges that have been filed against him. Other political allies said they were confident that this problem will not slow momentum for a change in LA Unified. It was smart of Ref to step down so he's not a distraction from the broader agenda, said Ben Austin, who recently founded a nonprofit called Kids Coalition and has been a leader among those who backed the election of the current majority. In terms of the broader agenda, I think everybody recognizes that this is a historic moment that is bigger than any single elected official, Austin said. For many Rodriguez backers, this agenda includes making it easier to fire teachers, eliminating seniority protections, where school employees must be laid off, an increasing number of charter schools. They also want charters to have greater freedom to operate and improve access to classroom space on district campuses. Charters are exempt from some rules that govern traditional campuses and are run by their own boards, largely dependent of the school district. The criminal charges prosecutors filed against Rodriguez include the felony counts of conspiracy to commit a crime, perjury, and procuring and offering a false or forged instrument. The case against former school board is a result of a lengthy investigation into his successful first-time run for office. In a 14-page complaint, the district attorney's office accused Rodriguez of giving money to his own campaign while legally representing donations had been made by 25 other contributors. The case grew out an inquiry by the Los Angeles City Ethics Commission, which reviewed the suspect contributions after a tip from a whistleblower. One reason political money laundering is illegal is because it deprives the public of information about the true source of the candidate's financial support, the commission stated. The commission referred its findings to the district attorney. Prosecutors also have charged Rodriguez's cousin, Elizabeth Tinajero Melendrez, 45, for her alleged involvement in the scheme. If convicted of the felony counts, Rodriguez faced a possible maximum sentence of 4 years and 4 months in jail. Melendrez, who has one felony charge, could serve up 3 years in jail. Rodriguez supporters and other observers have downplayed the seriousness of the allegations, noting that it would have been legal for Rodriguez to have openly written his campaign check for the same amount he's accused of laundering, but others characterize the charges as disturbing. The allegations against Dr. Rodriguez are serious, and we trust the legal due process is being followed to bring all issues to light, says Mac Arias, Executive Director of Service Employees International Union, Local 99, which represents the largest numbers of district non-teaching employees. When the president of an organization has these issues, it's obvious takes away energy from the mission of the organization, which is to educate students, Arias said. 4 board members, Bennett Kaiser, whom Rodriguez defeated in the election, a question 2 years ago, said Rodriguez should leave office. I'm glad he stepped down as president, Kaiser said, but I think he should resign from the board because he's setting the bad example for kids and anybody that wants to believe in ethical election process. So right there, he's saying, Bennett's saying, oh yeah, he's guilty of proven innocent. So I can't really agree with him on that. And the updates here. This article has been updated throughout the initial comments about Rodriguez's decision and the details of the case against him, 3:40 p.m. This article updated with information who will preside as board president in the process for truth and replacement. 2:35 p.m. Rodriguez was updated with additional background on the charges against Rodriguez. So, interesting, right? Oh yeah, so it's one of those things. He may have done it, but it has to be proven in court of law. And sometimes these school boards too, there's a lot of other governmental institutions that have a lot of shysters in there as well, infiltrators, provocateurs, and people that have sticky finger syndrome. But I can't make any judgment towards Mr. Rodriguez, but a lot of corruption in Los Angeles too, so I'm not going to argue with that. So what I'm going to be doing also, I'm going to add a link from Ballotpedia, which he actually emailed this to me. So and they have the whole rundown about this stuff. So there's plenty of links in here. If you want to see more, I'm definitely going to put that in there on Ref Rodriguez. So like, probably young guy and all that, but the truth of the matter is, they got to prove it in court. So it's disturbing, but everything has to have merit and a conviction. So yeah, it's one of those things. We'll see how far this goes, right? Absolutely. So all right, cool. So let me just take a chill for a little bit and shall return. All right, well, the next one here, I'm going to be addressing a couple of commentaries. This one from The Verdict. It says here, yes, political and economic issue of our time really is inequality, by Neil H. Buchanan. The one issue that has motivated voters, including plenty of former non-voters over the last year, is economic equality. This is hardly surprising because inequality in America has become so extreme over recent decades that even the characters of the Great Gatsby would gape in amazement. This distressing reality ought to present Democrats with a golden opportunity. As a party of working people, they can now more forcefully than ever highlight the Republican Party's complete takeover by apologists for the wealthy, whose handiwork has made the lives of typical Americans worse and worse. And everything that the fake populist Donald Trump has done simply amplifies that. Even so, there is still a powerful group within the Democratic power structure that clings to the supposedly realistic and business-friendly policies of the Bill Clinton years. I'm going to continue on. Amazingly, those power players are still pushing their fellow Democrats to do everything possible to squander this moment of opportunity for their party. This renewed push against progressivism in the Democratic Party is based on an almost religious belief that policies that would directly address income and wealth inequality must be resisted. Or as the headline of a column by a credulous economics writer for the New York Times put it last month, it is the economy, Democrats, but inequality is not the issue. Not only we are told that addressing income inequality would be bad economically, but doing so would supposedly be political suicide. Why, it is never quite clear, but it seems to boil down to the simple idea that voters will naturally reject everything but what the center-right Democrats tell them they should want. Although there's a snarky way to put it, it is sadly not an exaggeration. The current situation is extraordinarily clear. Inequality is a serious problem that presents liberals and progressives with the perfect opportunity to return their roots, winning votes by championing policies that are good for the economy and that help struggling Americans. Anyone who tells Democrats to ignore that opportunity is either deluded or must want the Democrats to remain permanently out of power. So it's like more than the partisan game, I see, right? Absolutely. I'll continue on here. Hobby horse and political openings. And any political environment is attempting to use the current circumstances, whatever they are at the moment, just by a long-held policy agenda. This is the political version of the old line that everything looks like a nail to a person who only knows how to use a hammer. As I noted to the previous account, for example, there is a group of never Trump Republicans who have been grasping for some kind of lifeline, claiming implausibility that people who voted for Trump because they were repulsed by the administrative overreach of the Obama administration anti-brick policies for college campuses. This is neither a typo nor an exaggeration. These conservatives have apparently convinced themselves that people jumped on the Trump bandwagon when they found out that the government had told colleges and universities to use standards that are less likely to result in women's accusations of sexual assault being ignored or disparaged. I'm not saying that there's no argument to be made from a conservative perspective that the Obama approach violated some idea of balance of powers between the executive and legislative branches. But I'm saying that this is ridiculous for any policy work, conservative or otherwise, to believe that their grand theory of government is what motivates typical Americans, what excites fellow bloggers and right-wing think tanks. Luscious is not what drives real voters. Okay, so you claim to be some political expert, right? Well, let's continue on here. Even if a person not willing to say that his pet cause is what truly motivates millions of voters, however, there is a further problem of using the emergence of every new problem as an excuse to push for the same old policy agenda. Motivated thinking can be a powerful thing. You should talk to me about that, right? This tendency to find self-justification in every tidbit of news need to be limited to overly political actors. During the Cold War, nuclear scientists apparently were able to interpret any changes in the USSR relations as evidence that their weapon systems were necessary. Things are getting friendlier? That's because our nuclear weapons are scaring them into cooperating. We need more. Things are getting more hostile? That's because we don't have enough nuclear weapons. We need more. Well, he has a good point on that area, so I can't disagree on that perspective. As I noted in my most recent column, Republicans obsessed with tax cuts for businesses and rich people reached peak absurdity when a top House Republican declared in the lead up to the second Iraq War, nothing is more important in the face of war than cutting taxes. So, yeah, right? And it's funny about that, because a lot of Democrats, too, voted for it as well, including Hillary and Kerry. Hillary Clinton and James Kerry, to give you a couple of examples. That claim was especially notable because even if someone believed in general that cutting taxes was a good idea, going to war ought to have changed that calculus entirely. When a country goes to war, after all, its resources are being stretched beyond normal bounds, and that people can reasonably expect to sacrifice at least a bit in the name of national interest, but for at least that one Republican. It was just another day at the office looking for excuses to cut business taxes. By contrast, a considered different policy idea, increasing infrastructure spending, which many of the left and the center-left advocate consistently, there is, in fact, scarcely a circumstance in which liberals and progressives would not tell you that this is a good idea. For active, however, I should say that there is rarely a realistic circumstance in which people on the left will not advocate increased infrastructure spending. That it is certainly possible to imagine living in a country where we reliably pursue high payoff public investments, so there would be no need for anyone to include their party platform in anything that says we must commit more to infrastructure spending. But we do not live in that world. The nation's roads, bridges, water, and sewer systems and electric grids are literally trillions of dollars behind in simple maintenance, which says something, which says nothing, new opportunities that we could continue to ignore every year. All of which means that people like me who say that infrastructure investment is a priority can reasonably argue that now is the time to take care of these neglected projects no matter what is going on now. Even so, it is possible that the same situation are even better and than others when it comes to justifying such spending. The Great Recession was an extraordinary, mostly missed, sadly, opportunity to catch up on infrastructure spending because we would have reaped all the usual good effects of infrastructure spending and put people and businesses back to work during the biggest economic downturn in 3 generations. Even better, we would have been able to do so while borrowing money virtually for free. So there is no general rule saying that a person is being either or wise or opportunistic when she argues that the current circumstances call for a long-favored policy. Either is possible, but what if a new problem directly implicates a solution and one political party could ride to electoral victory? You know, the whole thing I say about that, on infrastructure and so forth, well, how about we just cut, well, let's actually go after the military industrial complex. That's a great start. And support common defense, not imperial offense. So those are things that are good. But I'm going to continue on here. inequality and the forces politics of the movement of the moment. Today we have Democratic Party that's out of power almost everywhere, although many pundits continue to overstate that to the extent of Democrats' losses in 2016. All that really matters is that Donald Trump is used his toxic version of the populist politics to buy a non-majority electoral college ticket to the White House. Interesting claim there. What Democrats do now, even more, Trump's unlikely arrival on the scene, many commentators, including me, were warning that the extreme suffering caused by a Great Recession could be very well lead to the rise of extremist political movements. Where I went astray was in imagining that the eventual recovery from the ugly days of 2009 and 2010, as unnecessarily slow as it was, would spell the end of the great intimate political extremism, not just in the United States but across Europe. A long-term effect of economic stagnation for the middle class continue to create dangerous political currents. Yeah, it's simple. It's called Hamiltonianism. When people see their own situations deteriorating or standing still, okay. Deteriorating or standing still while fortunate few take all of the gains as the economy begins to recover. Anger grows. Bigotry have been thought downturns out merely to have been sleeping, awakening in the moment when the demagogue can blame Mexican murderers and rapists and Muslim refugees and immigrants for our problems. It's called social engineering, man. Just learn about that, okay? Good grief. And the Club of Rome as well. This means that no matter how many Trump voters and continued supporters are motivated by bigotry, we can blunt the effects of that hatred and perhaps put it back to sleep by focusing on the economic conditions that contribute to such backlash. The emergence of unabashedly liberal egalitarian politics among some Democrat leaders is thus a healthy response to inequality. It is not merely that progressive policy agenda happens to work even better than usual in the current environment. The best possible response politically and economically to the current environment is to embrace policies that fight against inequality. In short, this is the moment when progressive politics is simple, the best response, no matter what we might think in their other moments. Yeah, you know what? It's real simple. People got to start doing some bargaining agreements. Okay, then you get as long as the person can do the work, you do the same work, they get the same pay. Okay, there's a big difference. I don't know why you're trying to use this whole government knows best mentality. You know, like they can't even tie their own shoelaces, regardless of partisan politics. But I'm gonna continue on here. The tutting of the triangulators. As I noted at the beginning of this column, however, that there is still a relevant group of Democratic power players who are scared to death of their party's embrace of politics of inequality. One of the most prominent of those groups is revealing called the Third Way. We continue to peddle Bill Clinton's false claims that the right and left are both wrong. We must triangulate between them. Shortly after the New York Times published the column that I noted above, which amounted to an unpaid advertisement for the Third Way's rejection of progressive policies, the group sent a blast email touting the Times column. In that email, they also tried to take on the mantle of the underdog, claiming that they were fighting the economic narrative around income inequality, which has become the establishment approach. If groups like the Third Way are anti-establishment, then I am a world-class sprinter. But beyond their false political positioning, what is about the economic narrative around income equality that worries these people so much, it's hard to figure out what drives them. They talk about focusing on opportunity rather than inequality, but that could easily be included within, any anti-equality agenda. Instead, the Times columnist tells us that a $15 minimum wage is a bad idea. No explanation, just bad. More intelligently, this is a response to some Democrats' call for free college tuition. That can sound meaningless in a large swath of the countries where fewer than 30% of residents have a bachelor's degree. Half the people who start a 4-year program do not finish it. What's interesting about that, because hey, sometimes they got bad instructors, sometimes they just lose interest, It does happen. So I'm gonna continue on here. And if this is down on a minimum wage, I said, look, go back to the gold and silver standards, okay? Then the money be a lot more valuable, not this $15 minimum wage fiat garbage. Come on, give me a break. So I don't know, people don't understand the history of money here. That says here, this is bizarre. The problem is that fewer than 30% of residents have bachelor's degrees, and part of the same problem is that half the people who start college do not finish. Why did this problem exist? In large part, college is too expensive. Precisely the people who feel hopeless and excluded are the ones who end up being among the 70% of people without college degrees. Well, another thing too, now you can go to these big universities. It'd be a little bit ridiculous, but here's one thing you can do now. You got technology. You can use the internet. You can there's a lot of places you can educate yourself. You gotta get the right curriculums. I'm not saying simple, but you gotta do a little work. People gotta do a little research themselves. You got it on your lap. You got the internet. Use the damn thing. All right, then you can better yourselves and better and make greater achievements. This would it's like saying progressives want people to have access to a healthy diet, but it can sound meaningless to people who have never had a healthy diet, who are unable to buy food that will enable to extend their lives. Restating the problem is not an argument. In the end, this might seem like a minor internal scuffle among the Outs Party factions. That is true up to a point. As I noted, nothing I have seen in the way of affirmative policy suggestion for the third way is actually inconsistent with the more comprehensive progressive agenda. But recall that the larger message, the headline of third way hardly endorsed and amplified, is that inequality is not the issue. That is much deeper than a merely technocratic argument over, say, how much to spend on college tuition, how much to spend on free college tuition versus working retraining program. If inequality is not the issue after all, then Democrats should groan too loudly when the Republicans pass pro-growth tax cuts that just happen to worsen inequality. Hey, maybe some of these tax cuts will trickle down. Who cares if the evidence tells us otherwise? Inequality, we are told, is not the issue. The issue could truly energize the Democratic Party and allow it to expand its appeal among disaffected voters and are ultimately all about inequality. Why should Democrats oppose the repeal of the estate tax or reduction in top tax rates on the creation of loopholes to allow business owners to cut their taxes in half? Why should they want to keep Republicans from taking health care coverage away from 30 million people or more? Why should they want to allow workers to be safe on the job or consumers to buy goods that are not dangerous or people with lungs to breathe cleaner air? Why should Democrats want to expand college opportunities all along the income spectrum? The people at the top of the economic heap will have all those things because of growing inequality. Fewer and fewer non-wealthy people are so lucky. It is economy. Democrats is very much about inequality. Well, I'm just a little bit delusional with some of his rhetoric. And the truth of the matter is, my friends, when you got government knows best, it's like taking a dump. You find you get better gratification. And we got to know one thing too: both Democrats and Republicans right now are complete terminal, even on an economic basis. Some of these things, they try to do economic plans. You read these certain bills, and the fine print is horrible. That's like a form of mercantilism. Now, don't get me wrong, I support, safety of workers' rights and all that, and people have the right to join unions. I'm not going to argue about that by any means. But we have to do it internally amongst the people themselves, not just go to government for everything. See, the truth of the matter is, too, it's not the Republicans that's hurting the economy. It's the central banking system. The Great Depression happened thanks to the banksters. All right? Those parasites called the Federal Reserve. It's happening around the world. It's just another example. And with all due respect to Mr. Buchanan, you better start doing his homework a lot more and just using his partisan political game, because technically, to be very sincere, it's not really that key, not really that pretty. Why should a lot of people be punished for being productive? We all have the knack to try to do things better to better ourselves, including myself. I'm not going to go around pointing all the finger at everybody else. Educate yourself, make yourself better, and even support self-efficiency. you can make things better. I'm not saying simple, but it does take time. Learn some skills in the farmland, the rural areas, the countryside. You'd be surprised what people can do. But the whole thing is this: federal government's getting too much and it's sticking their hands in the wrong areas. And even sometimes state governments is the same thing. Why did Detroit, city of Detroit, went bankrupt? Government knows best. As far as I'm concerned, was neo-mercantilism and globalism killed Detroit. There's even talk about Chicago maybe next. Lord forbid. One thing I have to say too: government is a parasite of society. Doesn't matter what party you're in. So to be very sincere, someone wrote on here to Mr. Buchanan, to see how delusional Mr. Buchanan's economic thoughts are, look no further than economic performance in America during the 8 years of the Obama administration and the 8 months of the Trump administration. During the Obama years, 2 of which there was Democrat control of both Senate and the House, the U.S. experienced the slowest economic growth since the Great Depression. Real wages declined, the number of welfare food stamps increased by millions, unemployment was stagnantly high for years, and heavy regulation of business kept job growth slow. The last 8 months since Mr. Trump was inaugurated, the stock market has hit many record highs. Unemployment has come down some. Jobs have increased. The number of employees in the federal government has decreased by thousands. The stranglehold of regulations is easing, and the job growth is up. Well, he has some good points there as well. But the bottom line is this: we're going to really try and raise that debt ceiling once again, which is a total sham. And the Federal Reserve is responsible for putting this country in debt, and the rest of the global central banks do. You have to look at that as well. And furthermore, if the economy collapses, you're going to blame it on President Trump. Don't even fall for it, folks. Doesn't matter if you love him or hate him. If you study economics for a long time and pay attention to how the banks run things, interest rates and all that, they're not supposed to do that. You're supposed to regulate money? Congress, not some central bank. That's part of the Communist Manifesto as far as I'm concerned. So the whole thing is this: do your own history. Great book to read, How Capitalism Saved America by Thomas de Lorenzo. Very fantastic book. I recommend everyone check that out. We'll say economics, but this whole thing on inequality, like I say, you're not going to please everybody. That's the truth. That's the real truth. Alright, I'll do one more thing here. Yeah, I'm almost done. This is from the Future Freedom Foundation. Came out yesterday. Hornberg's blog. Did the CIA assassinate LETELIER and MOFFITT? As a read here, came out a couple days ago. Ever since the assassination of former Chilean official Orlando LETELIER in 1976, the official position promoted by both mainstream press and the Washington establishment was that former Chilean dictator Augusto Pinochet, who the U.S. helped to install into power, or the hit on LETELIER. Yet, as I point out in my 3-part article, assassination of Orlando LETELIER and Ronnie Moffett, which was published in January, February, and March 2017, issues of FFF's monthly journal, Future of Freedom. That position is problematic. You can see it for yourself. First, a recap of the facts. In 1970, a self-bound Marxist socialist named Salvador Allende was democratically elected president of Chile, concluding that Allende was a threat to U.S. national security, especially given his friendship with Russia and Cuba. U.S. officials targeted Chile for regime change. But the regime change efforts culminated in 1973 with a U.S.-supported military coup led by Chilean General Augusto Pinochet, whose national security state forces proceeded to round up, torture, rape, disappear, or execute tens of thousands of Allende supporters or people who believed in communism and socialism. Among those incarcerated, and tortured for about a year was Allende's administration office official Orlando Letelier. Owing to international pressure, Pinochet finally agreed to release Letelier, who ended up in Washington, D.C. working for a leftist think tank and lobbying strongly for a cutoff all international funds to Chile, including U.S. foreign aid that was flooding into the Pinochet's regime. It happened on September 11, 1973. It was called Operation Condor. On September 10, 1976, Letelier delivered a speech at Mexico Garden detailing the horrors of Pinochet's dictatorship and also pointing out the collaboration between the CIA and so-called Chicago boys, free market acolytes of Milton Friedman, who had gone to work for the Pinochet dictatorship. On that same day, Pinochet issued a decree depriving Letelier of his Chilean citizenship. The next day, September 11, while Letelier, his young assistant Ronnie MOFFITT, and Moffitt's husband Michael were riding to work in Washington, a car bomb that had been placed under the car exploded, killing both Letelier and Ronnie MOFFITT and injuring Michael. Clear here in a photo of 3. See it for yourself. Thanks to some determined FBI agents, the assassination was ultimately traced to an American living in Chile named Michael Townley and 5 Cuban exiles living here in the United States that Townley had retained to help him with the assassination. Townley was ultimately given what can only be described as a sweetheart deal for the cold-blooded murder of Letelier and MOFFITT. Agreeing to testify against the Cuban exiles he had retained, he received a relatively light jail sentence given the heinous nature of his crime. The deal was rather unusual since usually light jail sentences are meted out to those at the bottom of a conspiracy as a way to get those in the top of the conspiracy. 3 of Cuban exiles were convicted, but owing to a prosecutorial error at trial, their convictions were overturned on appeal. On retrial, they were acquitted. The other 2 Cuban exiles were arrested several years later and given relatively light jail sentences for the cold-blooded murder of 2 innocent people. Townley, who had planned and helped carry out the cold-blooded murder of Letelier and MOFFITT, admitted into the Federal Witness Protection Program, where he has been protected ever since. While Townley and the CIA have always denied that he was a CIA asset, these denials were never meant much, since they would deny if it were true. And the fact that Townley, who lived for a time in Miami, which is the epicenter of CIA activity against Cuba, had characteristics of a CIA asset, given he was an expert bomb maker, an expert in radio technology, an expert assassin, and fiercely loyal anti-communist. Townley did acknowledge that he was working for DINA, D-I-N-A, a top-secret torture, intelligence, and assassination agency that the U.S. National Security Establishment helped create in Chile and then trained after Pinochet took power. Head of the DINA, a brutal man named Manuel Contreras, was later determined to be CIA paid. The official theory is that Pinochet ordered Contreras to assassinate Letelier as a threat to Chilean national security, that Contreras ordered Townley to carry out the hit, and that Townley employed the 5 Cuban exiles to help him plan to carry out the car bombing. Yet there are problems with the official story, at least insofar as Pinochet was concerned. Pinochet denied ever ordering the hit of Letelier, of course, as such denial by a brutal military dictator who oversaw the kidnapping, rapes, torture, execution, or disappearance of tens of thousands of innocent people wouldn't ordinarily hold much water. And yet, logic and reason dictate that Pinochet may have been telling the truth. After all, the U.S. government was the reason that Pinochet was in power. It was also the U.S. government that was helping prop up Pinochet's dictatorship with millions of dollars and in U.S. foreign aid. Pinochet really jeopardized his relationship with the government by committing an assassination on U.S. soil, at least without receiving the green light from U.S. officials. That wouldn't seem very likely. Moreover, Letelier often traveled internationally if Pinochet wanted to assassinate Why not wait until he was traveling in some foreign country that would have been consistent with other tens of thousands of assassinations being carried out in Pinochet, Contreras, and Dina as part of Operation Condor, the international assassination run by Dina, which the CIA had contributed to communications and technological equipment. Moreover, if Pinochet was planning an assassination later, on September 11th, it would be the point of depriving him of showing citizenship on September 10th. Of course, even if Pinochet did specifically order the hit on LETELIER, that would let him off the hook. He had vested Contreras and Dina with the power to assassinate people without first checking with them. That itself would make him criminally liable for the assassination. But what the U.S. officials and the U.S. mainstream press have never seriously considered is possibility, even the likelihood that the CIA, operating in conjunction with Dina, ASSASSINATE, Contreras, and possible Michael Townley too, orchestrated the assassination of Orlando LETELIER. The problem with the sweetheart deal that was given Townley becomes apparent while Townley was willing to implicate Contreras and Pinochet. As a practical matter, it didn't matter much because both Contreras and Pinochet were safely ensconced back in Chile. At the same time, the sweetheart deal given to Townley meant that the Justice Department lost the ability to squeeze Townley into disclosing that the CIA was involved in the assassination by threatening him with a life sentence or even a death penalty. The same motive for installing Pinochet in order and power in the first place. Later, like Allende, was a communist. When Pinochet instigated his coup in 1973, was one of the first things his forces tried to do was kill Allende. That's because Allende was a communist or a socialist. After that, the roundups, kidnappings, rapes, and murders of tens of thousands began. That's because the people were being kidnapped, raped, executed, tortured, or disappeared were communist or socialists. All this was done with the full support of the U.S. national security state officials, whose forces at the same time were killing communists in Vietnam. And so here was one Allende's communist, Orlando LETELIER, spouting communism on American soil, and even worse, doing everything he could to destroy the U.S. national security state's agent's regime. As I'm writing in my three-part article, one of the things that intrigued me was how Townley was able to employ those 5 Cuban exiles to assist him to the assassination. It is not like he put a wand at it in Washington Post looking for assassins he could trust. When one is going to assassinate a well-known and highly respected former government official, it stands to reason that he would want to hire people that he knows he can trust. People that he knows are going to keep their mouths shut. So how did Townley come to meet those Cuban exiles? How did he know they were expert assassins? How did he know he could trust them? How did Townley, Contreras, and Pinochet, who lived thousands of miles away in Chile, come to decide that these particular Cuban exiles living here in the United States could be trusted to carry out something this big and this delicate? I recently came across called Operation 40, which was linked for that. It was a secret group organized by the CIA soon after Fidel Castro came apart. Its mission, regime change in Cuba, including through assassination. Apparently, many members of Operation 40 were Cuban exiles. An interesting question arises: why were any of the Cuban exiles that were implicated in the LETELIER MOFFITT assassination former members of CIA's Operation 40? In 1953, the CIA published a top-secret study of assassination, which shows that particularly from its inception that the CIA was specialized was not only in assassination, but also ways to avoid detection. The question is, did the CIA exercise its duly the specialty 23 years later in the assassination of Orlando LETELIER and Ronnie MOFFITT on the grounds of national security? Well, very interesting indeed. Well, that's what happens, man, when you have folks out there just want to do things a little bit different, right? Of course. Operation Condor. And stuff, I did stuff on the CIA my last show. So there's a lot of stuff, information on it. You can even go through the declassified list. You'd be surprised what these people have done after all the years. So, hey man, that's why I'm against imperialism. I'm sick and tired of seeing good people getting shot at, getting assassinated, or maybe getting thrown over for their national interests, not the American people's. That's why there's a terminology called blowback, which is very intriguing. Good book to read by Chalmers Johansson. Check it out. So that's a good one for Hornberger. And I recommend folks read it. So I'm going to put also my footnotes on my Spreaker page, okay? Alright, my friends, that is it. I thank everyone for listening. Plus, feel free to download and share throughout your social media networks. If you have any questions, comments, or maybe something that's interesting you may want to check out, whatever you do, please address your correspondence with the Decorum. You can hit me on Facebook, Twitter, Google+, Spreaker, iHeartRadio, Tumblr, YouTube, Freedoms Network, Scene.lifeminds.com, FutureNet.club, Patreon.com/Local3rd if you want to be my donor and patron and all that good stuff. In addition, you can hit me on Gab, G-A-B, which is gab.ai. That's another social media network that's related to Twitter. And they're very pro-free speech. So that'll be another one keep it handy as well. In addition, you can email me at lookalup3@gmail.com, or you can cryptotypes lookalup03@protonmail.com. Alright? Once again, thank you for your time. Plus, always remember that the Maniac resistance helping for so and can liberate humanity. Until next time, take care of yourselves. Keep on spreading love, and may your guardian spirits be with you.